The Trump team is riding high into the new year as Americans' opinions of the president-elect remain up compared to his first term. A new Gallup poll shows 51% of Americans approve of the way Trump is handling the presidential transition, slightly up from the same time in 2016. But that same poll shows Americans seem to be mixed on what they think Trump will be able to accomplish in his second term. 68% say they believe he will be able to control illegal immigration, while 60% say he will be able to reduce unemployment and keep the U.S. safe from terrorism. It comes as the president-elect is blaming open borders for the two attacks that happened over the New Year holiday. One in Las Vegas, where a Tesla Cybertruck exploded near the entrance of the Trump International Hotel, and the other in New Orleans, where a man drove a truck into a crowd of people, killing more than a dozen of them. For more of this, we're going on the record with Scott Tranter, the Director of Data Science for Decision Desk HQ. Scott, as always, it's great to see you and Happy New Year. You know, it's interesting, these two attacks come as two prospective members of Trump's cabinet are gearing up for confirmations that could prove to be bumpy. Tulsi Gabbard is going out for Director of National Intelligence, and Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense, as well as Kash Patel for FBI Director. Scott, could these attacks help the Senate fast-track those confirmations? I saw Mike Waltz on, who's been nominated for National Security Advisor. He's pushing for lawmakers to really unite around these picks after the attacks.
Yeah, and you're even seeing senators like Mike Lee and Ted Cruz going on X and saying, yeah, they need to fast track these nominees. Given it's going to be a Republican-controlled Senate, this is obviously at the forefront. And all those nominees that you mentioned have already done rounds on in Congress, so the process has started. I could certainly see this happening pretty quickly, certainly in the first 30 to 45 days. The Trump administration wants that to happen because outside of Marco Rubio, a lot of these nominees have some baggage with them and are going to have some interesting confirmation hearings. My guess is they're ultimately all going to be approved, but they still got to go through the process.
President-elect Trump says he plans to hold what he's calling a victory rally in Washington the day before inauguration. It'll be his first rally in Washington since January 6th, and a victory rally seems a bit unprecedented. What are you expecting at this event, Scott?
A raucous event. A lot of people are going to come in for the inauguration, so it's a good time to do it. It's also, it appears it's going to be at the same site where Harris held her last rally before to close out the campaign. So I think it's a little bit of trolling on behalf of the Trump campaign. I don't expect anything, any law enforcement necessary or any protests or anything like that. I think this is just Trump trying to bask in his win, which he likes to do.
I'm going to shift gears to, for the race for the DNC chair. This week, Chuck Schumer endorsed Ben Wickler, who currently chairs the Wisconsin Democratic Party. Obviously, Schumer is a major figure in the Senate and in the party. What does this endorsement say about where the race is now?
Yeah, so it says that everyone, unless you're a really big DC insider, doesn't know who Ben Wickler is, doesn't know many of the nominees. Although this is the process that back in 2016 got us, folks like Pete Buttigieg. So some of these folks would be a rising star. But given the soul searching the Democratic Party is doing, I find it interesting that you have a pretty establishment figure like Schumer wading into it. And on the face of it, it seems like it could be helpful, but I could see some of the other DNC candidates using that against him and saying, "Look, we need a full-hearted change, not an endorsement from a longtime senator like Schumer."
There's been a lot of the blame game going back and forth between progressives, centrists, many parts of the Democratic Party. We see that progressives had a lot of criticism from the establishment after the election, with the establishment accusing progressives accusing the centrist coalition of ignoring more progressive voices within the party, whereas many establishment Democrats say the election losses are the fault of the progressive wing. Wickler has received praise from across the party. He's gotten endorsements from Schumer, the centrist group Third Way, as well as from more progressive groups like the Progressive Change Campaign Committee, as well as the executive director of MoveOn.org. Do you see him as a unifying figure within the Democratic Party? It seems like everyone across the board so far seems to like him.
Yeah, he certainly racked up some of the endorsements. I find it interesting. I think we're going to potentially see an endorsement from an AOC, who's obviously in the same New York delegation as Schumer. Bernie Sanders likes to endorse in some of these things. There's quite a few other groups out there who've lacked their endorsement. Wickler certainly has lined up a few from both sides of the spectrum of the Democratic Party. There's still quite a few more out there. We haven't seen many of the unions weigh in yet either. I think there's quite a bit more endorsements to go, and he got the news cycle this week because he did get Senator Schumer.
We know that on Capitol Hill, progressives seem to be losing some steam. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez lost her bid for a leadership post on the House Oversight Committee, and we saw that the progressive Democratic group known as the Squad on Capitol Hill has significantly dwindled in their numbers after Jamal Bowman lost his primary and Cori Bush lost in the general election. Now, some on the left wing are saying the left wing of the Democratic Party, are saying they expect to be a target for the incoming Republican trifecta. Scott, why do you think progressives are struggling to find success at this point, and what is their next move?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is, as you pointed out, the Republicans got a trifecta. We saw places like New Jersey, New York, Illinois, California that have been historically Democratic states and still are Democratic states now, see their vote move rightward. And you can kind of see some of the reasons behind that, especially among some of the minority African Americans and Spanish shifted rightward. And so I think a lot of the voters and a lot of the Democratic voters look at that and say, I wonder if that's because of some of the progressive positions we've taken. And then that has blowback on some of these more progressive outspoken members. As you pointed out, in these leadership elections, we may even see some centrist primaries as we get into the 2026 midterms. And certainly, as the 2028 cycle shapes up, I know it sounds crazy, but you got governors like Gavin Newsom and Gretchen Whitmer moderating some of their positions publicly as well.
Yeah, we should definitely be looking out for those governors of blue states in California, New York, and of course the blue wall. So I want to look ahead to some of the off-year races this November. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is seeking re-election despite being indicted for bribery and campaign finance violations. Does Adams have a shot here? What are you watching for in that race?
I'm watching to see if he switches his affiliation to being a Republican. He's taken a rightward turn on sanctuary cities. He has touted having calls with the incoming Trump administration. He's obviously under investigation. He has tacked his administration more centrist and more rightward since he's gotten in, and I think that's a lot to do with the political environment. And he's going to have some big name challengers with we're going to get Cuomo in there again and a few other big name candidates. So yeah, look, he is running as if he is going to have a challenging primary and potentially lose. And I think it's going to be one of the crazier races to watch this 2025 cycle.
Definitely. 2025, even though it's the off year, will certainly be eventful. Also, races in Virginia and New Jersey. Scott Tranter, as always, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
And that's it for What's America Thinking. I'm Julia Manchester. Come back next week and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to The Hill's YouTube channel.